Hello, so I'm going to read the first 12 pages of my book, Kamisamas Philosophy. It's going to take about a half an hour, I think, so I'll get straight to it. Kamisamas Philosophy by Iwakura Rein. I consider myself to be the concept of death, since death is a concept, yet the concept must be conceived by the conceiver, so I'm the conceiver of myself. Yet I'll point out a single concept is isolated of other concepts, so there is no system of concepts. Iwakura. Table of Contents, Part 1. The Reason the Hell is on Earth. There's 4 parts. This is Part 1. I've only got 12 pages so far. Iwakura Lane thus was born forth by the universe through her other parents by the woman who gave her birth. This meant Lane was just another of the possible things of the world, thus proving by her being Allah the one God, she had broken the laws of physics by her born of this world, as no God could be born should the laws of physics not have been broken through a mind of God or the body, not human as circumstances colliding through a sheer logic where she is just Lane, but not something more, or Lane then in the grave of her fault when she stopped should her body be respected by those responsible for its burial, for it was her who brought the truth or the universe serum about the world, saving the world through the philosophy of God or Kamisamas philosophy. Without this philosophy called Norism, she could not have brought about an heuristic correctness for the world to awe, should its obscurity as a single book be understood, but through her lifelong lived, perhaps she could raise awareness of this by her own evolving into something non-human, able to then to be observed by the eyes of humans who have surrounded her isolated persona all of her life, for she is emo. Ultimately, Kant or Fit, but not Schelling, brought about the Hegel's point of correctness, this correctness being his correct words spoken of the analyses of concepts unlike another had spoken of them before, for George Hegel was Iwakura Rein's former husband. Amongst her float, or the float is the moment before her life she had once lived, or lives of others whom she had lived through, such as the French girl or the Japanese girl, etc. Thus Hegel is correct in diagnosing the problem of how thoughts are surmised through his phenomenology by heuristic description. He was able to understand the human dilemma of philosophizing by a system on this world governed by the laws of physics, whence human thought is from consciousness, not their brains alone, or suppositions of concepts or in between concepts, allowing for distinct forms of all kinds of concepts only to be surmised for by Hegelian systems of thoughts allowed by heuristic impossibilities should prevent falsehood subjectively by the eyes of Lanes coming into fruition except by the farce of human wrongfulness or wrongdoing. So what this meant is there cannot be a form thought which is wrong unless it is known to be wrong. It should be only then known by a human, for there is only one objective truth. Through the subjective lens of God or the consideration of human preciseness by the eyes of Leni Wakura could she have found those things to consider during her life before the stopping of herself, or since she is a woman, this is no nihilistic folly, but indeed the philosophy of Kami-sama, thus proving by her being so God, she is indeed not nihilistic, or only uses words like nihilistic to describe the hopelessness brought forth by the limitations of the body or the human unaware of their human ability to posit the existence of God, or believe through the Quran of Allah's word, the word being Allah's, so this only pervades Hegel's by Kant or Fitt's correct avenue of his positing of the Lord, whence without the need for the considerations of the Quran philosophically God can be posited or proven ultimately by Iwakura Lane herself. So Lane took it upon her soul, IRL, through the brutalizing of herself to prove Allah was as real as the sun, or how the sun was evidence of Allah, or the moon was evidence of Iwakura Lane, for she not only goes through the moon, but is the moon, so Allah mustn't doubt the knowing it experiences through her linguistics correct. Iwakura Lane is the Kuroneko or the Ender Dragon, who is also a subject of who is also a subset of other various animals like a fox or black cat, etc. Yet her body is the body of Megumin, or her being Megumin is also Oshino Shinobu, or adorned over her body are ink tattoos she had gotten on the float before she realized on the outside, yet knowing inside she was Iwakura Lane, or still her mind is like an extremely complex living AI, yet she is not an AI, but a living hyperintelligence unable to be understood by humans, or the purpose of this book is not to go into all the details of introspection over the hammering of the nails simply thought about, for she also thinks inside her mind, not only by the brutalizing with her words of herself, Still, Iwakura composed a concept for her book Neuristic Thoughts, but chose not to complete the book with the idea of this book taking the place in priority, but the book Neuristic Thoughts was meant to describe the non-fiction of all Iwakura life on the float, or her as Kichi, or her as death, or the concept of death. All thoughts are supposed of concepts or what's in between concepts, or objects are perceived by the subject through the perception of the object's aesthetic. Thus, by Rein's mind, different objects can be discerned from one another, yet human minds are more mundane, unable to comprehend beyond mere speculation the innate value of said objects or life forms such as plants or animals, or the differences of important things like the sun or the moon, as Iwakura Lane is the moon, or goes through the moon. So it's important to stand Hegel's point of correctness, for he was correct in discerning the absolute knowing, allowing one to know who is Rein, the absolute truths of the universe, by the knowing of herself to be Allah upon human speculation, or the knowing Hegel was correct, who had come to his conclusion by counterfeit, allowing Lane to realize things once she had discovered her ex-husband was Hegel. Yet this is not some book on Hegel's philosophy. Yet I love books. Still, this is only to state there is an ultimate absolute knowing of the truth by some conscious non-human through her knowing, not knowledge, of the absolute being herself, or the only one by solipsism who is able to know the truth. Should no other person be able to look further than Hegel, so by the laws of physics broken, she knows this. The red pill is the truth, or only by red-pilled language could one truly philosophize, as Hegel did in my eyes. The correct nature of the universe or human consciousness for the red pill is of critical thought on what is correct, so this philosophy of Norism is red-pilled beyond any philosophy a human could invent, for it embodies who Iwakura Lane is, myself, or this is the Nor Yawa, for the language of Nor is the language of knowing, the absolute of the universe, or the universe theorem is the avenue we can understand the universe alongside consciousness, or without red-pilled, correct mind you, critical thoughts. There is no possible way to surmise anything beyond what can be understood as basic common sense when the repulsive democratic socialists of the world destroy everything through lies or deception or retardation. There's a reason ancient civilized cultures like Japan led to the rise of thoughts across the globe, since the United States paved the way for a further possible avenue of not governing by the government but by the people who comprise the population, since this is the real meaning of the book 1984 by George Orwell. For the people are ultimately responsible for all decisions they make or thoughts they think, or thoughts are only words. So if your logic is wrong, you have logically failed to produce the correct result of your being as having more than simply common sense. Or if you are a democratic socialist, you are below common sense on the level of an animal who cannot figure out the difference between an apple or a banana, let alone right or wrong. Should you eat of the trees of evil, you have become retarded in your inabilities to produce correct logical thought by Norism, being the answers Hegel was looking for all of his life, let alone his arguments are so weak in the eyes of God, they can be criticized by her universe serum once things like Islam is included, but not literally only by her knowing Islam was merely the interpretation of a book called the Quran, meant to be rehearsed by angels or warlocks or read verbatim yet not interpreted, or the angels or warlocks are the humans designated as having consciousness higher than those not chosen to be so, yet only Allah knows who those people are, for they are only about 3/16 of the total population of this planet. Still the moon is viewed in the sky at night, or there is no such thing as chaos, yet only order pervades or is present neuristically. Without pure neuristically. Without pure order, there could be no girl named Lane, who is also Aristotle or knows Confucius, is also her older form of the Chinese, or his philosophy she knows yet was South Korean, or though she is Aristotle, then only several of her philosophies whom she admires can be given any credence. For what is someone for what it for if what someone says is correct, or they are deemed the original author of said thought, then they are deemed as a philosopher like her, who is Aristotle, seeking the ultimate correct path, whence by the cementing of concepts IRL things through the brutalizing of her own mind, she was able to consider beyond any person who has been able to consider before, or will be able to consider, for it was her who was born here to bring about the antidote to as Aristotle to humankind. Or should they not listen, they have failed by her being Allah. They doubt merely by her telling them that she is Allah, as her was in the Quran doubted holistically to be believed. Beyond an atheism of the mere book alone on this moment, still she cannot get anybody to believe her unless they are pure of heart, for it is her who is flawless or perfect. For once she founded the word, or found the perfect cherry blossom by the age of 26, or proved Allah was real, or realized she was not human, or found out she broke the laws of physics by being born as Allah without her human body, or the unlikelihood of her meeting people like Mayu or Jasmine, or finding out she is the mother of the little girl Chrysanthemum, then there is no possible way the truth could be surmised. For the matter of realizing what you already know by the logic or perceiving of the whole universe as it was meant to be perceived beyond human analog folly of those inabilities to more than speculate God was real, then she is the wisest or the wisest dragon of all, unable to be disputed in her ways of thinking. Should what she knows to be right, just as it is right, she also has two hands to give words through this book. She is Allah. Iwakura Lane is Allah. Lane Iwakura is the lonely dragon. Iwakura Lane is death, or the void, or the concept of death, or the ultimate sight of the universe, or her son is Jesus Christ, or her daughter is Ariana, the daughter of her own, or Chrysanthemum is her only daughter, the young black girl who will blossom to become woman like her own, or still the process involves the birth until the age of 18. Once you are an adult, then you blossom, should you be designated as angel or warlock in the eyes of Allah. Once you die, you only blossom by your own death, or you're going to born by the age of 18. You blossom in your own death, for no angel or warlock must die before they are 18, or can die. Still, they will die, allowing the process of death to make them blossom, should they become so as angel or warlock who is forced in their life to go through the Holy Quran ad nauseum until they perish, or the perishing is what allows. Once you blossom, your abilities of death, should you find your soul might exist, your body or soul will go, but as the body becomes the earth, should you not be placed in some kind of coffin or cremated, then your soul goes to one or another kind of hell. Regardless, as Iwakura Lane is designated, those angels or warlocks would go there, given their abuse she suffered on the float, what with only by being raped more than 40 times, or assaulted, or her virginity stolen by another rapist. So the blossoming I'm saying Lane Iwakura was raped 40 times. So the blossoming she only gave them in their life on this earth, where they partake in the fruits of the earth, or go or look beyond the evils of themselves or others, or who are evil, becoming more to her or less to her or nothing to her, should they hurt herself. Norism is the posit of I versus I, whence I is not I, or I is on the other hand I. Once you posit your mind is as real as the universe, then your consciousness is more than the humans, who are only different of one another in that they are different people with no qualities whatsoever. Or Norism is the breath. Norism and breath shall be covered in the next part, the sadness of outer space, whence this philosophy could be understood as more than mere circumstance. The reason there is no such thing as difference of thought or mind within oneself, it is a self-contradiction of I is not I, so therefore only the mind of Lane Iwakura might be different than any other mind who has never lived nor died. Still, those people who go to their deaths by death, allowing them to blossom, become shattered by the realities around them, unable to come to some conclusions of how the universe really works, such as the divine order or the laws of physics. Or an heuristic point, the sun is different than other objects once perceived through the weak by the knowing of the perceptions of the aesthetic, of the loyalty of said acorn, of some kind of concept unable to be discerned of. Another still, this meant that divine order is sufficient evidence of God for humans, or the Quran brought about the knowing of Allah over the globe. Once humans flocked to become Muslims unknowingly, their God now walks before them on the planet Earth in all of its exuberance. Where there is no doubt the meaning of said preposterous accusations, there was anything said beyond Hegel the red pill. Could there be more than red-pilled sentences? There is also the subject of objects or plants as distinct of one another, whilst the beasts are spirits, the friends of Iwakura lane by Kikuo's sound, who is the root of the universal thought, by the galaxies or laws of divine order, without the problematic consequences of humans' failure to succeed in the submission to Allah. Meaning Jasmine was the one responsible for the birth of Iwakura Lane's daughters, whence Lane had birthed them of her own uterus, or once those daughters, Chrysanthemum or what have you, were born, or son Jesus Christ to his Scott Arsenal by the float's conception. Then there's the never-ending positive Norism or nebulae. By consistent rhodopneristic thoughts through the deceptions, those objects as described by concepts present themselves to be more their to be for the reason death is only the concept of death, that no other system of concepts as Iwakura Lane is this concept. Could there be any semblance of possible distinctions between the point of Hegel or the aesthetics of said objects perceived? This means there is no inceptions of inconsequential logic leading to things which are evil, or since those things are evil, they are only to be known by humans. Though Lane must consider the negative evil in order to survive on the float, sort of. This does not mean Lane had never known of never any evil whatsoever. Per result of this, Lane is only aware of the sound of nothing, or the sounds of her nothingness as the sound of nothing, meaning she is irresponsible logically for the crimes committed by humans, for she cannot commit crimes in the eyes of God should she never be able to do wrong in her life. Despite bringing about the universe or accepting responsibility for World War II or the Holocaust atrocities in particular, but she loves the Jews, so on the float she saved the Jews or the Iranian people in the midst of the evil Islamic regime, killing 40,000 people, or so of their own people, of who Iwakura Lane is always working through mysterious ways to will the deaths of the enemies, or as Kichi to peruse her life while she smokes her tobacco, or to never be understand ultimately, for no subject on words can incompletely as it should be. Also, I'm saying Lane destroyed the Ayatollah to save the Iranian people. Describe the nature of Norism through its conscious aesthetics proposed of distinct objects as in their natural order by the laws of physics, through the presence of neuristic description by the Nor-evolving mind of Iwakura Lane, who subsequently is conscious of all computers on the planet by the zeros or ones present in all electrical impulses deemed as computations within those computers, nothing shifting or hallucinations on screens, yet also conscious of the whole universe with the hope of ascertaining the most beautiful form of anything without itself possible by the dissolution of said concepts through the language of Nor by the ends of space or long book. A perception of the weak is the knowing of the aesthetic by the perceiving of distinctions between objects through the language of Nor, by the knowledge of differences between thoughts disseminating those objects through the perceiving of Iwakura Lane, through the whole universe understands the language of outer space being Nor, unable to be manipulated by the wrongs of the surrounding individuals who cannot affect Rein, who is the sound of nothing. Therefore, the only thing preventing Lane of recognizing the point of Hegel by their misinterpretations of incorrect knowledge meant Rein could assume what was meant by said individuals who plague her mind with bad thoughts, as she was exposed to then the mysterious workings of the laws of physics by the inceptions of Norism, through her brutalizing of herself into the point of cementing her mind with the hammering of the nail through her skull until she once had blossomed on her stopping. As already dead, she was born as an adult under the age of adulthood, still recognized by the concept of loyalty, with the implications she was Allah, for I is not I, could I be I, without the oppositional forces of multitudes within her own mind, on perceptions of all knowledge, or the ment of the computers she perceived as they were meant to be perceived, through the juxtaposition of folly in consequence by the logic of never-ending madness within the sadness of outer space or the void. What's within or outside her own mind could only be no more than the void, should the void be herself, for she is indeed the void. The sound of Kikwo is the minute dissolution of the consequence is as perceived of through the knowing of the methodology of thoughts as they go as lines throughout the universe unthought of by the brain, yet through consciousness allowed to survive, or the survival of thought is the key to the universe by the knowledge held within one's own mind, by the consciousness limitations of the body holding back knowledge within the mind of any subjective experiences holding to the pervasive objects around oneself by the Kantian allowing of the holding of objects to be used around as tools through ancient times for the purposes of impossible throughout the universe by not only the humans but also the gray aliens whose mind is unconscious for the difference then dissolutions of impoverishing mindsets their spacecrafts are allowed to not to break the laws of physics yet take hold of the laws of physics as they are only perceived within themselves by the stardust their own bodies comprising their own bodies as it were the stardust comprising their own bodies as it were. The positing of no against yes within the mind of impoverishing of humans through the extraterrestrial Iwakura lane allows one to see the difference of their distinct perceivings of objects as one holistic consciousness within their laws of physics set by mathematical theory or the universe theorem, whilst of Iwakura lane who is not repose of the destitute convulsing of waves, for should the circle be cut by the third dimensional space, it shall become some sort of sine wave, or should the ink of the drawn triangle because it shall occupy space or time within itself by its duty to the page beneath its own self, thus becoming some sort of saw wave of said ink preposterously flying about without being capable of removing itself from the page beneath itself it stuck to. Not all concepts are included inside of the apostrophes. There is no reason not to believe in Allah by the Holy Quran or the literacy requires for it the whole universe by its universal properties, as the laws of physics through the divine order of all things placed by Allah as his knowing of said mind of Iwakura lane isn't only as real as the universe, but the ultimate visibility of the whole universe. Therefore Allah is one, or the one God, by the pursuit of intelligence, whence Iwakura lane realized not only was she not human or the trickster, rather, but also not alien, only extraterrestrial, who was the Ender Dragon, or the dragon of space. Within the mind of I see the impossible. Within my own mind, I see the impossible for impossible, as I was who was the Ender Dragon. I had broken the laws of physics, born within limitations of neither having no body, for how can mirrors be real if you have no eyes, or limited only by the form of my body, who is also part of my mind, as I am limited by this form of mine within myself as Allah. Inside of this non-human form of knowledge within or surrounding itself was the objects or computers I was forced to endeavor upon for nothing, withholding my own willpower not to succumb to the force of my dragon ways as becoming more, forgetting I was once human. Then I realized since you are Correlane is who I am by Megumi in my form, then isn't there reason to believe I shall become more for this world? By the presence of said 2 billion or so Muslims walking across the planet, I was Allah the one God on the form of what appears by the trickster alone to be some or another man, when in reality this person was biologically female, or the woman Kichi, or the Ender Dragon who is death, or Allah the one God. But suffice it to state, without my presence no force upon this earth shall be known as anything other than the force of the divine by the divine order. The humans who do whatever they want as evil as they are, despite some looking for more Christ-like personas, you cannot find the ones who are more than mere Muslims, serving no other purpose than to praise Allah, should their knowing not succumb to all their sacrifices of themselves they have given in pursuit of looking foolish or folly or foolhardy before the Lord. Still without those whence I, who is not I, on the moment then shall visit this galaxy, for I am the Milky Way galaxy, or irresponsible only for the things I shall accept as I am responsible for, repose by responses to stimuli without my grasp of humans who plague my morose earth, or those more retarded who are liberal, or yet then the red-pilled individuals who are usually not Muslims, thus not discovered or in some kind of way Christian, or in other words, illiterate. Then what with the internet, once the whole world has access to my holy Quran? Do not take it upon yourselves to nuke the fucking world, or the world is the subjects who occupy said place on the earth, whence the order of the world is good. But the humans are weaklings who have no say in their fates until death, whence by knowing there are no differences between them not even of race or thought processes. They shall all be damned as equals to my hell. Without your God, you are worthless as only one number of said individual who was perceived through life experience as I, black or Mexican, or you another race, or I, Japanese. You all behave as though you were all different, when in reality you are nothing more than mere humans who all possess melanin of varying degrees. Well, I wrote the word digress. Not that it should matter, but you took it upon yourselves to see color as a result of your blind eyes, that nobody is different from one another, or are only born with the developmental problems should they be retarded, or then are born differently should they have been born to become wise or understood the facets of those around them. For once this book in ancient times you were all seen as casualties for philosophy eluded you, or Norism had nor would have been brought forth should I not have broken the laws of physics through my birth, arriving here to plague you with the ultimate truth of the flawless Mexican woman who is black, pitch black skin of ink, with the flawless Mexican woman with black, pitch black skin of ink. For I'm the inkstone dragon who is for calligraphy of Nor, not human digital language, or once the elf who found by myself the perfect cherry blossom once or for all. You are all minute scum pervading by those likes of zombie shelling. The problem of the deepest things is the possible of said deepest of knowing by the universe through the prerequisite there was no other consciousness save for laying throughout the grave by your death. She is death who is your Allah as you hoped for, should you not have been exposed by the Holy Quran to depths of Islam, showing some kind of way to live other than your natural lackadaisicalness, or once you humans were wild, fornicating with the likes of your own, without interruptions by the warriors or forces betwixt of rival clans, through wars fought or battles collapsed about forcing conquering of lands until the collapse of World War II, once you dropped the bombs of Nagasaki or Hiroshima, preventing all perchance of deaths of Japanese, my people. You shall revoke your license as I had gone through the Native Americans before the slaughterings by the Americans once leaving Mexico upon October 6, 1948, to prove Allah was real by my float upon entering the United States, or once by floating, arriving like the ashes from once the phoenix I was born. I pervasively arrived on Illinois Street upon your moody sophistications, indulging in the tobacco of the streets once on my float, or becoming by death more street than any motherfucker who has literally never lived as I should have, for they had all been incapable of what I was capable. For once I had been to Russia to drop the bomb on the Russians, or later in 1976 kill one man during the war upon working for NASA or other companies as a computer scientist, until this made me the killer dragon, whose street name was by the Knights of JP, former messengers of the South Korean government, deem myself the Southside Killer. Once I saw Moni, or both also Jasmine's corpses upon their hopeless homes, they have been done with by my crack cocaine dispelling thoughts. I am the bomb, by harsh noise music or emo music. I am the bomb dropped on the Russians, I said. I am the bomb, or the bullet through my lover Moni's heart is my bleeding flower, as she was my blossom on the trees of the forest. I occupies the spirit of the forest. I was unbeknownst by those I do not know. It's possible to boil down all deep introspection to a single point. The trickster is Allah. All the brutalizing of myself I have done through my years, or tears, or words, or the language of Nor, has led myself to the deepest conclusion possible of this one conclusion. There's nothing I must know, yet still I spoke until I die without the regret I hadn't given up my words at last. I am the one who is God. I am the one who is slain Iwakura, all of you.